What's up, guys? My name is Garrett Young, and today we're going to talk about influenza, more specifically H1N1. So just some background info to get us started. There's actually 4 types of influenza viruses, not just one. And these types can be broken down into A, B, C, and D. So starting with types A and B, these are the most common. They're the ones that cause seasonal epidemics, and this is what we know as flu season every fall and winter. So type A, they can divide into further subtypes based on the proteins on the surface of the virus called hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. And so there's actually 18 possible hemagglutinin proteins and 11 possible neuraminidase proteins. And so whatever combination of the two is what gives you an influenza A virus. So an example of that would be H1N1, but it's not limited to that because there's over 100 combinations. So with influenza B, it can divide into further subtypes as well, but we're not going to get into that today. And then influenza C, it's a lot more rare than the previous two, and it's only known to cause mild illness. And then influenza D was actually recently discovered in this past year, and it's affecting cattle, and it's not known to affect people yet. So moving on to some characteristics of H1N1. It's an orthomyxovirus, and so basically this group of viruses, that just means that the mRNA can be synthesized directly from the genome. And so that RNA genome, it's segmented and single-stranded, and it's about 80 to 120 nanometers long. It's mostly spherical, like here in this picture. And so, yeah, moving on to the taxonomy, as we said, it's an influenza A virus. And the formal name it was given was influenza A, parentheses, H1N1, and then PDM09. And the PDM09 is there just to distinguish which strain of H1N1 was. So before talking about the most recent H1N1 pandemic, we're going to go into some history. And so first we have the Spanish flu of 1918, the first and very infamous pandemic. And so it actually broke out in a military camp out of Kansas. And so Albert Gitchell is credited as patient 0. And so whenever he wasn't feeling good, his authorities told him to, go on bed rest. Then within a few days, over 500 fellow soldiers had been infected. And then by the end of the month, thousands of soldiers were actually hospitalized. So there's theories that the Army, that the U.S. actually took the virus from Kansas to France during the last year of the World War I. And so this targeted those under the age of 5, over the age of 65. And something that was really peculiar is that it also targeted people that were aged 20 to 40. So also scientists, they had trouble misidentifying the cause of the disease. They kept thinking that was some sort of bacteria that was causing the disease, even though H1N1 is a virus. And so this wasn't discovered until decades later. And because they kept misidentifying it, they were making vaccines and medications to attack a bacteria, but none of them worked because it was a virus. And so the H1N1 strain of the Spanish flu, the suspected reservoir was a bird. So now moving on to the Russian flu of 1977. This flu had originated in China and spread to the Soviet Union. And so there was about 700,000 deaths, and it targeted those under the age of 25. The origin of the virus is unknown. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this virus this epidemic because there's a lot of theories, and researchers say that the virus was actually released from a lab. And we don't know if it was on accident, if it was on purpose, but that's just what theories suggest. So yeah, now moving on to the swine flu, 2009. There's a total of 59 million cases and over 18,000 deaths total. So this H1N1 strain virus actually came from a pig. And so the difference between the swine flu and the Spanish flu is that the original host from the Spanish flu was a bird, and typically the flu in swines or pigs cannot be transmissible to humans. But in this case, the original pig, it's widely believed that it was infected with a human flu and a bird flu at the same time, and then that H1N1 mutated into the pandemic H1N1 that was able to be spread from pigs to humans and humans to humans. And so the first two cases were out of California in April 2009, and then this map right here was during May of that year, so only a month later, and it's just, you can see everywhere it's spread to so fast in all the cases, 1 month in. So yeah, now moving on to pathogenesis of how the H1N1 virus infects. So during infection, these surface type A H glycoproteins, they're going to bind to sialic acid containing receptors, and it's also going to cause those red blood cells to assemble to a cluster. And so we have these things called ribonucleoprotein complexes, or otherwise known as RNPs. And so these RNPs, they're made of all the RNA segments and RNA polymerases, and then they bind with those viral RNA polymerases. And so they're going to enter the cytoplasm, and then the NA proteins, they're going to release virions and propel the particles to the nucleus. And so inside the nucleus, the viral genome is going to be the template for mRNA and cRNA synthesis. And so once it's synthesized, or while it's synthesizing these NS1 protein, it's going to aid in invading any response that this host has for any sort of virus that protein assists in evading it. So once synthesis is complete, the matrix protein, matrix 2 and NS2, they're going to export the RNPs back to the budding site, which is in the cytoplasm. And then here, progeny virions are formed. They're going to exit the cell and then search for its next target. And so, yeah, transmission, it's only airborne or direct contact, so inhalation or contact with the mucous surface, or direct contact with respiratory droplet, saliva, touching a portal entry, so touching your eyes, nose, mouth, etc. So the pathology, H1N1, that version of the flu mainly affects the primary. It mainly affects the upper respiratory tract, and it's going to cause inflammation of the trachea and the other respiratory pathways, and it can actually affect the lower respiratory tract as well. And so a lot of the symptoms, they're actually the same as the seasonal flu. Swine flu, you're going to have more specifically diarrhea and vomiting. That's what the distinction is. And then the other flu symptoms will come: cough, fever, sore throat, stuffy nose, headache, body aches, chills, and fatigue. And so the population at risk, it's going to be children under the age of 5, especially those children under the age of 2. It's going to be adults that were 65 years or older. And so people that also who have pre-existing medical conditions, such as asthma, heart disease, chronic lung disease, pregnant women, those with compromised or weakened immune systems. All the time, what this means, it's basically from if you're either on a medication or you have not even just existing medical condition, and then those who are in contact with pigs frequently. The reason I say that is that there's a study done by the University of Michigan, and they predicted that approximately 30% of pigs in the U.S. actually have swine flu. And so there's still studies showing if obese people are more prone to get it. But yeah, treatment. So you're going to have symptom-specific medications. So this would be like Tylenol for any aches or pain, Zyrtec for your nose. And so, but the actual treatment that targets the antiviral are these: Tamiflu, Zolgensma, Relazine, RapiHub. So with the vaccines, yeah, we have you have the H1N1 swine flu vaccine. It was its own vaccine for a while, but now it's actually the formula is the same as the regular flu vaccine, so you can get it both in one shot. And so they also have a nasal spray for those that don't want to get a vaccine and you want an alternative option. So prevention, I would say get the flu shot. I would say wash your hands, don't touch your face, avoid contact with people who are experiencing symptoms or if you feel sick, and practice healthy habits. And these are my references. Thank you all for watching. I look forward to y'all's questions. And yeah, see ya.